Howdy, 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 my name is Anachi Sasuke, and welcome back to SCP Sidestep. In this episode, we're going to be looking at a few things. The first one we're going to be starting with is, I believe it was the expedition to check out the field from the Crooked Man article. Because if the Crooked Man article is going to mess with my sleep patterns, like 14 hours after I actually read it, I should probably do this as soon as possible. Now then. The following is the first recorded exploration regarding the SCP-783 case file. I almost said campfire. Please refer to the primary documentation for further information. Field Log 1. Disposable 2172 was chosen to perform preliminary observation of the subterranean Tembe anomaly, a large circular pit acting as a mass grave for the twisted and elongated corpses of past 783 victims, all facing downward. 2172 was I'm probably going to call them Disposable instead of the numbers. Disposable is suited in MOP level 4 gear and fitted with a retractable harness. Communication and video recording devices were hardlined through the tether. They were provided with a handheld photoionization detector, a Geiger counter, and other environmental testing apparatuses. They were allotted a basic survival kit as well as a Ruger LC-9 and ample ammunition. Expedition was scheduled to commence 8 AM local time, but does not begin until 8:35. This is due to a minor issue regarding Disposable's personal protective garments. Despite being of proper size for their frame, Disposable proved incapable of fitting them on, even with the assistance of personnel. Larger gear had to be supplied. And that doesn't sound like they had already been crookeded to you. Transmission begins as Disposable is lowered via a crane over the pit of 783 victims. They prod their foot into a fold between the coiled torsos of two corpses, which part? That's gross. They look up and signal for the technician to continue. Visual, is it going to do the thing where the words get all crooked the worse it gets? It's probably going to do that. Visual feed reduces in clarity intermittently as limbs and bodies pass close to the lenses. 12 meters of tether are expended before daylight is completely obscured. Disposable's headlamp activates. Nothing of note can be seen from their position within the knot of corpses, because there's nothing unusual about a knot of corpses. Descent is put on hold when Disposable begins to thrash. Disposable becomes insistent that command resume the descent and at a faster rate. They claim to have felt a hand caressing their back. At 18 meters, Disposable reports a sense of vertigo and expresses confusion regarding the direction of travel. After a brief discussion with command, it is determined that Disposable had experienced an inversion of gravity. They manage to reorient themselves and proceed to climb upwards from their perspective in order to continue descent. Ambient light levels begin to increase as 20 meters of tether are expended. Daylight can be seen shortly thereafter. An overcast sky is captured as Disposable breaks the surface. The surrounding area is partially obscured, however, due to the countless elongated arms extending upward from the mass of corpses. Disposable utilizes two of these appendages as a leverage to fully extricate themselves. They slowly navigate towards solid ground. The area is seen to perfectly replicate the town of Tembe as it exists in baseline reality. Disposable is standing in a field on the outskirts of town. To the north is a small stone cottage belonging to a Mr. John Myers, and beyond that, the main road into town. Disposable turns for a panorama shot. Sparsely wooded areas and fields border Disposable's location in every other direction, confirming that this replication is absolute as far as can be seen. Thermal and atmospheric readings match those in baseline. Disposable disengages their harness, with audio-visual feed converting to a wireless stream via a relay device. Disposable is then instructed to use their photoionization detector to take a head sample of the soil. While Disposable is testing the sample, researcher Quest notes an oddity regarding the soil surrounding the mass grave on Disposable's end. Upon playback of the footage, dozens of marks can be seen in the soft earth. The pattern of these markings suggests that they have been created by fingers being drawn through the ground. This is noted by command. Disposable is not informed of this development. Disposable reports that no contaminants have been detected. Command instructs them next to proceed to the Myers cottage and to remain vigilant for any sign of researcher Singer. Oh right, I forgot they lost somebody. And then they tried to go find them and then they came back and were put on leave, but the letters were crooked, so they're probably dead. Disposable arrives at the cottage and knocks twice on the door. They pause, awaiting an answer, and then proceed to enter. The cottage appears to be uninhabited. Disposable rummages through the first room, finding nothing of note, and walks into the bedroom. On the wall over the bed is a rough sketch done in charcoal. It depicts the upper body of a reclined humanoid figure holding a rod or staff. Its free hand is outstretched above the headrest. Disposable is instructed to approach and inspect the drawing. They're hesitant, professing they feel a great sense of unease while in the drawing's presence. They advance slowly. With each step in its direction comes a decrease in the quality of the video feed, which begins to break up. By the time the drawing is within arm's reach, the video feed is obscured by heavy amounts of static. The audio is drowned out by a shrill whistling noise. Before Disposable can touch the drawing, Control orders them to withdraw. They acquiesce and back away. Interference is reduced to a nominal levels. Disposable is permitted to exit the premises and explore the village proper. Disposable walks in silence for a few minutes before the road sign for Tembe becomes visible. They travel down a bend in the road, where on the ground they find a single work boot. Picking it up and turning it over in their hands, it becomes clear that it matches those belonging to researcher Singer. Disposable intuits the direction Singer could have been traveling and points out a nearby home. It is a two-story dwelling with a sizable front lawn housing a wych elm. The tree is noticeably dead, the ground is littered with broken limbs. The front door of the abode is wide open. Disposable heads toward it. Director Kim, at the time acting as it's crookeding. At the time acting as command and overseeing the excursion, requests to be relieved of duty, citing the onset of a debilitating migraine. They are escorted to their quarters by Agent Collins. Researcher Bond steps in for Director Kim. Director Kim is a link? Okay. Okay. Director Kim is apparently SCP-3980 and they are Provisional Keter. Alright, that's going to be interesting and however the hell long it takes to get there. Disposable crosses the foyer and enters the living room. There are signs of a previous struggle. The couch is upturned, as is a small end table. There's a hole in the wall in the bottom of the floor, and the green grass grows all around. Disposable steps over the shattered remains of a tabletop lamp and into the adjoining kitchen. This room is in a similar state of disarray. Dishes, foodstuffs, and appliances that would have been on the shelves or countertop litter the floor leading back to the living room. Why does this alternate dimension version of this town where there are crooked arms coming out of the ground and weird, creepy drawings inside weird, creepy cottages, why is there food? Most of these items have incurred damage, suggesting they have been struck or thrown with considerable force. As Disposable nears the sink, a small pool of blood can be seen on the floor. There's a clear pattern of cast-off spatter on the walls and counter, with long strokes indicating that an assailant delivered several successive blows with a bladed weapon. Disposable kneels to take a sample of the blood, and upon standing, a butcher's block can be seen laying on its side next to the sink. All of the slots are filled save for the one intended for a meat cleaver. Disposable notes this fact. Of course it's a meat cleaver! Why would it be a meat cleaver? God forbid someone uses a steak knife for, like, a dismembering. A series of passive bloodstains leads from Disposable's location and towards a door on the far end of the room. Don't do that. The door is heavily pockmarked and scratched, indicating assault. It is found to be locked from the other side. Disposable attempts to kick it in, but only manages to splinter some wood along the door frame before becoming winded after 3 attempts. They walk back towards the other end of the kitchen, take a deep breath, and charge at the door. Disposable shoulders the door at full speed, breaching it successfully. Their momentum carries them over the door's threshold, where they panic and brace the wall for support in order to stop themselves from falling down a flight of stairs leading to the basement. Disposable gains their bearings and is chided for their reckless behavior. Command instructs them to enter the basement. They did. They just almost died from it. After trying the light switch, which fails to produce a result, they have a brief discussion with the command on the merits of documenting the contents of the basement, and place heavy emphasis on the value of their own life. They are eventually persuaded to continue on threat of being cast adrift. Disposable activates their headlamp. They draw their firearm, disengage the safety, and carefully descend in a low, ready stance, hugging the wall opposite the railing. The basement is largely empty. Disposable sweeps the area, and something on the ground in the far corner of the room glints under the light of their headlamp. Disposable approaches and finds the missing meat cleaver wet with blood. They kneel to inspect the cleaver, and upon standing they notice a quarter-meter wide hole in the concrete wall, an exhaust vent leading above ground. A piece of fabric is hanging from inside it. Closer inspection reveals it to be a pant leg. Disposable pulls at the article, which is found to be a tattered pair of tan slacks previously worn by researcher Singer. A rustling is heard from within the vent. Disposable leans in closer to inspect, and something fleshy can be seen, which quickly moves up a bend in the pipe and out of sight. Disposable promptly withdraws from the premises, which is to say, Disposable got the fuck out of there. Due to the discoveries within the domicile, researcher Singer is presumed to have been killed in action. That's probably not what that was. Disposable is instructed to travel out of town in order to further document the nature of the area itself and determine its actual boundaries, if any. Little of note occurs for the next 40 minutes as Disposable travels north and out of town down Tembe's main street. Disposable is now outside of Tembe's town limits, continuing on the main road, which now winds through a densely wooded grove of silver birches. This geography remains consistent with that of baseline for the following 2 kilometers, at which point forest gives way to fields. It is not until a small cottage is spotted ahead that Disposable expresses concern. They stop and survey the surrounding area, revealing that they had somehow emerged back on the south side of Tembe. Disposable conveys to command that they cannot see the limbs of 783 victims, which should have been visible extending out of the body pit. They diverge from the path and run towards the expected location of the victims. Upon reaching it, there's a large circular area of overturned soil and a distinct lack of corpses. There are no signs of Disposable's presence here either. A previously discarded sample bag along with the relay device and accompanying tether harness are absent. Disposable begins to panic and is instructed to hold their position while command decides upon a course of action. What exactly do they think they're going to do? It is heavily implied that the arms are loose. Researcher Bond confers with the on-hand technician to confirm the status of the harness. It is relayed that it had not been retracted prematurely, nor had any length of tether been expended since Disposable set aside their harness. After some deliberation, it is determined that Disposable had possibly entered an iterative spatial zone situated adjacent from their original point of entry. It is then decided that exploration beyond this point will be best handled by personnel experienced with excursions of this nature. Disposable is instructed to follow the road back towards the entry point. Disposable is traveling down the road through the silver birch forest at a brisk pace, idly conversing with command. It is as they remark on the absence of any form of life that a rustle of leaves can be heard. Disposable turns towards the source of the noise to find the naked body of an elongated 783 victim. It is sprawled across the road, unmoving a few dozen meters away. Disposable swears loudly and then turns to continue down the path. Another 783 victim is stretched along the road before him some distance away, also unmoving. Disposable withdraws their firearm and takes a step towards it. A rustling and snapping sound can then be heard behind Disposable, who again turns to face the victim behind them. Although the body's position remains unchanged, it is clear that the trunk and arms had grown and elongated, twisting and breaking, placing them closer to Disposable's position. More snapping can be heard once again from behind Disposable. They rapidly turn and fire at the SCP-783 victim, barring their path, whose neck had elongated and bent such that it placed the head roughly a meter away from Disposable at eye level. Though several rounds are discharged directly into its face, it elicits no reaction. Snapping can be heard once again from the unobserved victim behind Disposable, who absconds from between the entities by running off the road and into the woods. Disposable runs for several minutes eastward, ignoring command's advice to keep the road within view. They eventually stop to catch their breath and recuperate, coming to rest momentarily on a large rock. There is no sign of pursuit from the SCP-783 victims. Disposable uses this opportunity to reload their firearm. Upon holstering it, they take some time to consume an MRE. They consult with command on their relative position and determine the proper direction of travel. A moment is taken to alleviate themselves and they set off. The trek is largely uneventful over the next 14 minutes before Disposable stops. They claim to feel minute vibrations in the ground, coming in short, punctuated bursts. Though they are assured that the sensation may be attributable to the unstable region of space-time in which they are in, something that should not be concerning, they insist on remaining still, listening. They inform command of a muted thumping noise coinciding with the vibrations. This is not picked up on audio. It's probably the corpses. They advance carefully, readying their firearms. Off in the far distance, the camera captures a single silver birch tree being lifted vertically out of sight above the tree line. Disposable does not seem to have witnessed it. As command attempts to communicate this to Disposable, it comes back down through the treetops much closer to Disposable and impacts the ground with enough force to shake the ground. It can now be seen that despite its thickness and mottled white coloration, that it is not in fact a birch tree. From Disposable's vantage point, it cannot be seen to have any branches, and it extends to a point somewhere above the canopy. Disposable is instructed to approach and physically inspect it. Before they can act upon this, another such object comes down directly next to Disposable, knocking them to the ground. I feel like it's probably a body. Once on their feet, they approach the second object. They pause once to see the faint impressions of ridges and grooves running along the object's side, and opposite of it, a flattish, horny nail plate. Disposable fires at the object and draws blood. It quickly withdraws. A deep, protracted scream emanates from above Disposable, who breaks into a run. Disposable runs through the forest, swearing incessantly and begging for some form of assistance or support from command. As they run, more objects crash down around them, seemingly trying to hit Disposable directly. They break from the forest. They are now on the northern outskirts of Tembe. As Disposable hurries to close the distance to town, another of the unidentified objects collides with Disposable, knocking them on their back. The object comes to rest beside Disposable, taking up the majority of the visual feed. Disposable's gaze follows the object, tracing up its length. Without the obstruction of the canopy, it can be seen to bend and twist, terminating several hundred meters in the air. Disposable screams when they discover the source. The nude form of researcher Singer is suspended high in the air, balanced on elongated and grossly enlarged fingers. Is it just researcher Singer? It's not multiple dudes, it's just him? Researcher Bond stands from her position at the control console, doubles over, and proceeds to vomit profusely. A member of medical staff rushes to her side. In time to catch her, she falls unconscious. Dr. Peterson elects to take her place at the command console. Agent Collins arrives to help carry Researcher Bond to the medical bay, where she is to receive corrective treatment. So, the first thing is that Agent Collins' name is still crooked, and now Researcher Bond's name is also crooked, and then it said corrective treatment. So whatever happened to Agent Collins when she went into that pit a little bit seems to be contagious. The Singer creature screams a hollow sound, lifting one finger from somewhere deep within the silver birch grove. Right, nail plate, fingernail. Felling several trees as they drag it towards Disposable. Disposable rolls to their left and out of its path. They withdraw their weapon and fire at Singer, failing to hit their mark. The Singer creature can then be seen to lift its left hand, slowly drawing its digits together to grab Disposable. Disposable swiftly comes to a stand and runs in the opposite direction. The digits can be heard colliding with one another behind them. They safely reach the main road and do not slow their pace as they follow it through south through town. Loud thumping can be heard as the Singer creature ambulates on their digits in pursuit. Disposable narrowly avoids a finger as it sweeps past them to the right, crashing through a chain-link fence surrounding one of the houses. Another finger plummets through the roof of an abode ahead of Disposable. Disposable swears repeatedly as they come around the bend where they found Researcher Singer's boot. They pass the road sign, nearly falling as they trip over their own feet. Disposable's pace begins to slow as they are clearly becoming winded. The Myers cottage comes into view, and shortly thereafter, arms can be seen extending out from the body pit. Command encourages Disposable, urging them to reach the pit, ensuring them that the technician standing by is prepared to reel them back in. The Singer creature screeches! Disposable is knocked aside with great force, tumbling into the field. Visual feed is lost due to incurred damage. Disposable can be heard screaming and cussing with ambient volume increased, suggesting that they are getting farther and farther away from the recorder. The thumping of the Singer creature's fingers can be heard becoming more and more distant as well. Silence is recorded for the final half hour. Dr. Peterson orders the termination of the audio feed and declares Disposable is lost. It is decided that Disposable's harness may be recalled for future use. Agent Collins, whose name no longer seems to... Oh, never mind, it's crooked again. Arrives in the control room and discusses the matter with Dr. Peterson. Collins asserts that there is no evidence that Disposable was captured or had expired. Citing an ethics committee mandate on the exploration of non-incursive extra-dimensional locales, they persuade Dr. Peterson to leave available Disposable's harness. Several personnel remain on hand over the next several hours. At 2:13 local time, the presiding technician reports that they witnessed the tether moving. After a moment of stillness, they are able to observe it becoming briefly taut as a line is tugged on twice. Disposable signal for extraction. Medical personnel are notified as it is anticipated that Disposable will need to be tended to. After a minute, Disposable's empty body harness breaks the surface. It appears that none of the straps have been properly secured prior to being recalled. The harness seems to have been caught on something within the pit. The tether continues to retract, revealing the hand with Disposable grasping the harness, which slips out of their grip. Disposable's hand can be seen to move animatedly, attempting to grab hold of something to keep it from slowly sinking back into the mass of corpses. Disposable 209 rushes towards the pit, grabbing hold of Disposable's hand moments before it falls out of sight. They begin to sink into the knot of bodies as well. D-774, Dr. Lafayette, and Private Aud quickly come to assist 209, forming a human chain, and with their combined strength begin to pull the pair of D-Class from the pit. 209 is successfully extricated. His arms are outstretched, hands still grasping that of Disposable 2172, whose hand comes back into view. As the four men pull, approximately 3 meters of Disposable's forearm are dislodged from the body pit. It begins to bend and snap at several new points of articulation. 209 lets go. Disposable is claimed by the pit. That was uncomfortable and terrifying and holy shit. Now it's time to read Hello, I'm an Eldritch Horror, which is about that toaster that when people interact with the toaster, they can only refer to themselves as the toaster. I found this by way of the SCP Foundation subreddit, and it seemed interesting, so I bookmarked it with the intention of covering it. Now, conspectus. I, who will be one with all, am a thought-based being of great and terrible power. I, who will be one with all, I'm not actually writing this document, SC. Am able to move between worlds, devouring them, adding to myself. I do this first by becoming one with all the beings of a world, with one exception, see history and associated parties, and then with the fabric of the world itself. I constantly move between worlds once I have finished consuming them, but am currently jailed by the SCP Foundation. This is due to my currently inhabiting the easily manageable form of a toaster. For the purposes of protecting the library ways and the world I currently inhabit, it is advised that I be left in their custody. Taken from the 29th tome of the Solar Clockworks. Knowledge. Traits. I currently hold the form of a toaster. I have a silver finish and am capable of simultaneously toasting 2 pieces of bread. It is currently unknown why I chose this form, as in the past I have usually chosen to possess beings of great power or prestige. My true self, has to our knowledge no defiant physical form. I and those who have become one with me are recognizable in that we may only be referenced in the first person, and that we can become one with others. A being usually begins to become one with me after about 2 Terran months, and will begin to show the following signs. 0 days after becoming one with me, beings begin to believe that they are my current host. At the present, this means that they will believe that they are a toaster. 7 days, beings begin to speak, act, and think as one with other beings that have become one with me. They also begin to share knowledge and memories. 10 to 11 days, beings stop believing that they are my current host, but continue to believe that they are me. 12 to 14 days, we gain my preternatural traits, including the inability to be referred to except in the first person, and the ability to create more instances of ourself. Nature. I, who will be one with all, appear to be a being or force composed of idea and thought. My effects are unfixed and continually active. I unceasingly seek to become one with the universe I currently inhabit, and once I have completed this, am reincarnated into another universe. The cycle has to date repeated endlessly. Other aspects of my nature vary from host to host. I am currently being contained to some extent by the SCP Foundation. It is advised that library members set aside grudges and aid these efforts when possible. History and associated parties. I have become one with no less than 43,515 universes, and all of the beings within them. I'm often associated with the writings of beings in these universes, especially later writings. One party in particular is often associated with me, known as that which is separate. Ladies and gentle beings, I give you the exception. That which is separate will always reincarnate beside me, and beings which play host to it are the only ones capable of referring to me in the third or second person. When referring to me, that which is separate will often damn me or claim that I am an abomination. In all recorded cases, that which is separate will attempt to slow or stop my spread, either through sealing me away or by destroying my host. It is believed that the current that which is separate is Professor Johann Sorts, a jailer. Approach. If possible, attempts should be made to avoid referring to me in order to prevent the spread of my power and to prevent becoming one with me. Those who have become one with me should be prevented access to the library and the ways in order to prevent my spread. Remember always to guard your thoughts, know that you and I are separate and that you are not me. Focus specifically on the aspects of your life and nature which make you you, as opposed to being me. Observations and stories. Records of me have been found originating from many of the universes that I have visited. More like every single one of them with a writing system. Most of these stories focus on the chaos that my presence has caused, but a few instead focus on the unity that has been created. The Grimoire of the Adidal, Authors Unknown, is the first known text which presents the theory that I am composed of ideas, and seems to apply sound reasoning as to how this conclusion was reached. This conclusion, however, has not been able to be tested due to a minimum of 2 senses which appear to have been unique to the writers being used in the analysis. Art thou that damned beast, James Stoive, appears to be the only recorded account written about me by that which is separate. The journal chronicles that which is separate's attempts and failures to prevent the destruction of his world by me. It appears to be overall factually accurate, with a few minor inconsistencies in the events described. The collected prophecies of that depicts me as being a being of conquest, claiming that I will conquer exactly 4,368,616 worlds and universes before I am defeated. Due to the 68% success rate of Blight's prophecies, this result is to be considered, but only to an extent. Doubt. It is currently unknown how I transfer my effect and how I become one with others. It is currently theorized that due to my being composed of thought, Any readers with additional knowledge of how I operate are encouraged to share their findings. Beliefs that I have a wholly negative effect on the worlds which I become one with have recently been called into question. The reasoning behind this is that the universes I have become one with appear to be inaccessible, making speculation the only source of knowledge of the current condition of these universes. In addition to this, the only currently given reasons to suspect me of malicious intent or nature cannot be verified and come from the accounts of that which is separate, of whom we know little. I encourage lifting the restriction of those who have become one with me on entering the ways and the library, and excluding people based on who they are or what they believe goes against what quite a few of our beliefs and guidelines. I also suggest changing the tone of the description. We really don't know if I have a harmful nature or intentions. Ichabod V. Yes, it is true that it is usually wrong to stop people from entering the ways and library based on who they are or what they believe. The exception to that is when what people are or what they believe carry a great risk of destroying the library. As to changing the tone, I'm going to write about I, who will be one with all, as exactly what I am. A toaster who is eventually going to destroy my homeworld, which I rather like the way it is. Besides, I'm a pain in the arse to talk, write, and think about. Okay, and then there's the bloody autumn. Agent Matthews awoke to the sound of gunfire, then laughter. Chilling, inhuman laughter, filling the air from everywhere. I don't actually remember what this is from or about. Matthews had fallen asleep at his post, the radio tower, several... it's about the pumpkin patch? Matthews had fallen asleep at his post, the radio tower, several yards away from the main site. Satellite 66, Zone 97, the pumpkin patch, as it was known to the researchers and tasked with looking after it. And security tasked with looking after it. A younger agent, Matthews had been stationed here for the better part of a year now. The most excitement he'd enjoyed was when the cherry tree grew human eyes last month. He rubbed his eyes, confusion and panic welling up inside him. Blinking the sleep away, he opened his eyes to see a figure staring back at him. A child with pale skin, oily black eyes, and bloody teeth. It screamed! 1 week earlier, 150 miles away, a television in a dingy basement flickered to life. This just won't do. A colorful, sinister figure stood with his arms crossed, looking out the box with a disappointed expression. The being watching the television snorted awake. Tall, broad, a being of wood and wire and chain and cloth, of thorn and barb. A living scarecrow, brought to life by a stray bolt of lightning years ago. A bastardization of nature, neither alive or dead. I'd have expected that a creature like you would have had better things to do than waste your life watching television, sighed Bobble. Honestly, what a sad, sad picture. Do I know you? I feel like I should know you. Matthew screamed in terror. He stumbled out of his chair, tripping over himself, running as fast as he could out of the room and down the hall. The building was dark. Quiet laughter followed him, closing in fast. Bursting through the station's emergency exit, Matthew stumbled and fell, scrambling to keep on his feet. It was raining, and nighttime. A cool wind blew, one of which would be refreshingly brisk in any other context. The main complex's floodlights flickered on and off, power surging randomly. The wilderness around the complex was pitch black otherwise. Matthews could hear gunfire and voices he recognized, each cut far too short to imply survival. The site-wide breach alarm began to wail. It too was cut short mid-scream. The lights all faded at once, the dark closing in totally. After what felt like an eternity, a pale yellow glow surrounded Matthews. Disembodied flames danced high above. Pavement had been replaced with lush grass and ragged brush. Hundreds and hundreds of pumpkins covered the landscape for miles around. Dozens of glowing eyes peered through the dark. A chorus of giggles rising through the dim. He ran! So you're telling me, the scarecrow in the basement knelt on one wooden knee at eye level with Bobble. You're the horseman of war. And you know this. You understand it. You can see what I am, can't you, Scarecrow? The entity made a sound like a creaking wooden door. A snark, perhaps? What can I do for you? For lack of a better phrase, I want you to bloom, Bobble grinned. Seeing you like this breaks my heart. You had such potential, such promise. Whatever happened to you? Fucking scientists and creep killers, they're on to me. Almost got me last time, just gotta lay low for a while. Find a new haunt. So you're hiding in a shack in the woods with stored electricity, wasting your life away. Fuck off, clown. What if, Bobble offered, ignoring the cuss, what if I were to tell you that I could give you a way to beat them, to become more than an urban legend? I'm listening. A friend of mine, a very good friend, you'd like him, went and borrowed an item you might find interesting from our mutual enemies. All at once, a chorus of laughter welled up from the wilderness surrounding Zone 97. In panic, Matthews fled towards the failing floodlights, unable to think for fear. In his terror, he passed the bloodied and torn bodies of past comrades. Behind him, he could hear the sound of tiny feet splashing through pools of blood, chasing him through the dark. Matthews burst through the doors to the main containment yard, his foot catching on a root. He fell, tumbling face first into a pumpkin. Oh no! They exploded from the force of the impact, hot blood splashing out everywhere, soaking Matthews. As he choked, trying to pick himself up, something grasped his neck. A tiny skeletal hand reaching out from the remains of the pumpkin. Your type's always got a catch. Well, I don't know, I'm war after all, and this is the autumn of the world. The coming of the great harvest and all that. Bobble adjusted his gloves, smirking proudly. It's all very meaningful, and we do have a history, you and I. The Scarecrow peered back at the clown, shifting in his seat. Is that right? Oh yes, you came to life when some hard human kids tried to summon a demon, didn't you? Bobble's expression changed subtly. I have a thing for kids. I have a show just for them, see? I teach them all sorts of wonderful things. Murder, arson, torture, all the fun stuff. I wonder what I taught those horrid kids that made you. You're telling me. Yes, you get it now. Struggling, Matthews threw the bloody skeleton away to shatter against a tree. He wiped the blood from his eyes. Slowly, he realized that everything stopped. The wind, the rain, the screaming and the laughter, everything was utterly silent. He slowly, shakily, turned to look behind him. Dozens of figures quietly watched him, surrounding him in a wide circle and trapping him away from any exits. Some sat on the containment wall, others peeked out from behind pumpkins and trees. Some were indistinct gray and black shadows, others were almost human save for the sallow skin. Still others were simply skeletal, holding blankets or stuffed animals in a twisted charade of innocent life. The rustle of leaves behind him made him jolt. The world is ending, Scarecrow, and I am war. Bobble spread his arms, hands outstretched. It's the great autumn and time for a bloody harvest. The fruits of the age of man are ripe and ready. There was a knock at the door. The Scarecrow paused, narrowing his eyes. A special delivery? Oh, yes, go on, open the door. Matthews looked back, frozen in terror. A figure, the Scarecrow, loomed up behind him, eyes burning like coals. It laughed, a horrible sound, like a drowning cat. This is your army, delivered by fear itself. All of them? So long as you hold that flute. And there's more. Yeah. Tell me, do the words haunted pumpkin patch mean anything to you? The Scarecrow struck, slashing Agent Matthews' throat, laughing and kicking him aside. All at once the children around him, the ghosts, the wraiths, the undead, the unliving, howled in a hellish chorus. The sounds of drums and pipes began to drown out the din, the sky splitting in a peal of thunder. The Scarecrow turned to the center of the containment yard, eyes burning like coal fires burning into the sky. All of 97, the ruined fairgrounds, the trees, the tangled thorns and vines, the hundreds of pumpkins, suddenly shifted. The myriad plants uprooting and crawling to one side or another. It was as if the entire place had awoken and was now standing at attention. Oi, clown. Tell me something. Anything for you, my friend. What's in this for you? Silly Scarecrow. You haven't got a brain, have you? I am war. Wouldn't be a very good war without a general, would it? Bobble replied with a sly grin. And what better general to have in the autumn of man than the symbol of harvest itself? A walking scarecrow, riding the physical heart of autumn, leading an army of dead children forth in a bloody harvest. It's all very metaphorical. Don't you appreciate the imagery here? Scarecrow paused a moment, considering the logic. A low creak escaped his throat, something between a sigh of contentment and a grunt of approval. I love it. 97-1, the great pumpkin at the heart of the chaos, began to pulse like a heart. Slow at first, began to beat faster and faster. The drums and pipes beating and singing in time with the light. The Scarecrow approached, holding the pied pipe to its twisted wooden lips. A new song began. Okay, so this is a part of the competitive eschatology. So this was a story that was basically about the one of the many apocalypses that are happening in the SP Foundation wiki. I'm not sure why I set this one aside by itself when it was a part of that, since I eventually wanted to like hit that whole thing. I don't know. And last but not least, we're going to check out episode 3 of Confinement, which is an additional 9 minutes. So I'm going to stop the recording and then restart the recording so that I have all of the speaking bits before the video bit. And here we go.
Do humans like overpaying with
I should
Verizon?
probably
Don't
full
they know
screen it.
They can get the 3rd, 4th, and 5th lines free with Sprint.
Yeah, that means Sprint's unlimited plan gives you 5 lines for just $20 per month per line.
Really?
Robots don't lie. See how you can save more than $1,000 in the first year with Sprint.
Okay, I guess I can't full screen it. But can I do that? That's better. It's like the house from Courage the Cowardly Dog. Oh! Oh! It's gonna get you. Ooh!
Wait. Shit. 52 steps west of the Great Barrier.
SP9 something.
Yes, you've done it! My favorite clipboard. He found you, girl. He found you. Sorry about all the trouble, Connor. Assets upstairs told me that sending a task force into 093 to retrieve a lowly doctor's clipboard was a waste of time and resources. Fucking bureaucrats. What do they know about hard work? Say, can I get a drink? Alcohol at 3 in the afternoon? What do I look like to you? Some stuck-up bureaucratic asswipe sipping champagne from my ivory tower? It was just a clipboard, man. Get off your fucking high horse. I was thinking more like water. Oh. Well, I only have champagne, but you can't have any. You've got another test in 10 minutes. Seriously? I thought this was the last one for today. You have to see a Mr. Pierce at the robotics center. Sorry, kid, I don't make the rules. Fucking bureaucrats do. Better get a move on.
Why is the captions censored?
Child SCP over her insatiable appetite for porcelain trinkets has just been apprehended after using a teapot to murder Patterson Walmer, the owner of the 3rd floor 99-cent store. Yes, this is the first documented case of a knick-knack paddywhack.
Ah, hello. Sorry to keep you waiting. I'm Mr. Pierce from the Department of Internal Negotiations Guild and Unanimous Settlements, or Dingus for short. Follow me, Mr. Connor. There's not a moment to waste.
There's a missing muffin, and what's up with the robot?
Hey, fellas,
Pringles.
I'm back. This is Mr. Connor, the gentleman with regenerative immortality. He's the one that turned into a log during that double breach last week. No way. Dude, no way. Yeah, way. Connor, what do you know about the Anderson Robotics Company? They're probably blacklisted from the Internet Cafe, so not much. Well, it's a very secretive organization that builds machines with anomalous and unusual properties. They have support from very powerful people in laboratories all over the US, China, and that country next to Sweden. Dude, no way. That's the one. There's a fella in there from the company that refuses to speak with us unless we have an immortal being present.
What the heck?
Weird, I know. My guess is that he wants to bargain in one way or another. That's why I'm here. So whatever you do, don't say a word. Open the door, fellas.
Wait, so he's here right now. I thought they were gonna go somewhere.
How are you feeling today, 1360?
I am well. I presume you wish to discuss the bargain.
If you feel like it.
Confirmed. I desire to obtain the likeness and abilities of this individual, Mr. Connor. A perfect organism with remarkable durability and physique. Well, thank you. Personally, I'd make improvements to hygiene standards, but that's just me. In return, I can give you 6 terabytes of priceless information from the Anderson Robotics Company, including their schematics, partnerships, and future plans.
I see. Now, hypothetically, if you were to essentially become a Connor 2.0, there's a bit of robot slag for you, you would still be classified as SCP and kept here against your will. Do you understand that?
Absolutely. I am counting on it. I simply wish to experience the sensation of life without the burden of death. In the laboratories, I am reduced to a sliver of meaningless tasks and trials, haunted with sudden and daily intervals of endless darkness.
Okie dokie. Connor, what are your thoughts?
I wasn't paying attention.
I was about to ask
Okay,
if that's supposed to be
point
creepy music or
360,
sad music,
that's a
but in the
mighty fine
caption.
offer, but I do see one or two problems with it.
Elaborate.
We have no idea how to extract Connor's anomalous ability from his body to put into a surrogate body for you. We can, however, give you a normal human surrogate. We've got loads of corpses here.
It's true.
I think you misunderstand. I desire to be able to inhabit Connor's current body and have complete access to his brain and nervous system while his consciousness remains suppressed.
Excuse me?
Well, now you see, that complicates things a bit.
How so?
How so?
Connor is valuable to the Foundation.
That's right! Damn.
Besides, we happen to know that when an Anderson Robotics product is sold, it has its memory completely wiped. Thought you could outsmart the biggest dingus in the room? So what top secret information could you possibly have given us anyhow?
Are you insisting that I am dishonest?
No, just his.
I anticipated the memory wipe, which is why I saved it on an external drive. Perhaps this will change your mind.
Sorry, buddy, I'm not for sale.
Connor, let me do the talking. I'll take a look at this to make sure it's legitimate.
Mr. Pierce, you're considering this?
Now, Connor, I'm just taking a gander. Won't be 2 seconds.
What the fuck? What? What just happened? What? What the fuck just happened?
The difference between you and I, Connor, is that I was able to escape my captors. You should be grateful for this offer.
Yeah, no, not really.
You're never going to leave this laboratory, Connor. I am offering the only escape you could ever hope to achieve.
Dude, no way.
Bad touch.
Stop,
Bad touch.
stop moving. I don't understand.
Oh god! Ooh!
Mr. Connor.
What?
Unit 031, the prodigal son.
Mr. Anderson.
This is not where you belong. You cannot hide from us here, or there, or anywhere. I will give you one last chance to surrender and return to the laboratory. That's a shame.
Ooh!
Dear Connor, ever since the Foundation uploaded me into a personal computer, I've finally had the opportunity to explore the memories Anderson suppressed. My name in life was Ian, and I suppose still is. I can now convert some of my human memories into audio files to listen to, and each one generates even more memories. I would again like to apologize for trying to kill you that one time. Yours truly, Ian.
I mean, technically it was like 3-4 times.
That name suits you. I'm glad you're discovering more about yourself than before. Maybe one day they can find out who you were and slide you back into your old life. Unless it sucked, then you can just chill here with it. And about the whole murdering thing, it's cool. It happens a lot. Being in prison does suck, but you certainly get to meet some interesting people here. Yours truly, Connor. Is interesting spelt with an E or an A? Dude, no way.
that was a nice wordplay to end on. Subtitles by Dylan Zitz. Don't you fling Reese's in my face when I don't have any. The crap, YouTube. Hey, what did I say? Don't fling Reese's at me when I don't have any. That's rude. Also, that's the end of this episode, so if you liked it, a like and subscribe will be groovy. If you didn't, you only do either one of those things. Also, throw a subscribe to Lord Bung over here, because he's doing a great job making these videos. When this one came out, he was at 50,000 subs, now he's at 375,000, so if you don't want to give me one, at least give one to this dude, because he did a great job on this video. So, thanks again for watching, and I'll see y'all on the next one. Later.